Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we're going to be doing a jungle tier list. Now, this is mostly a solo queue tier list, but I will talk about the strength of the characters as well. And with jungle, it's not nearly as difficult as doing like a normal tier list. We have our large tier list. I try to keep to this template if I can, and I'm going to try to spread it out so I can actually use this so it's a little bit more pinpoint accurate. And then the D tier will be the do not take those characters into jungle for any reason whatsoever. So let's go ahead and start with what do we want to start with? Let's start with the attackers. We'll start with the attackers. So first and foremost, we have Sylveon. Listen, Sylveon can jungle just fine. It gets its Unite move at 8, but there's really no real reason to jungle this. You can jungle it fine, but there's just not really a reason to. So Sylveon is probably B plus tier jungler. Like, it's not that it's not effective. You could get your levels just fine, but there's always going to be a much better jungler than Sylveon. So honestly, this jungler could be in the just don't take it in the jungle at all, but it's not the worst thing that could possibly be done. So yeah. As for Ninetales, I'm going to be honest, there's no reason to ever jungle this character. It's the same with Sylveon, if I'm being completely honest, but Ninetales doesn't even have mobility. If you're Sylveon jungling, at least you can like pop out of jungle with Mystical Fire or something. I don't know. Realistically, this is a little bit hypocritical, if I'm being completely honest. It's a little bit contradictory. But Ninetales is one of those ones that you just have no business jungling whatsoever. As for this next Pokemon, it's S tier. It's Greninja. Greninja, especially when it comes to solo queue, is an amazing jungler. In competitive, it's an amazing jungler. Greninja is super impactful. It's the range AD carry, which stands for, people ask me all the time, what is AD carry? It's the letters A, D, and then the word carry. It stands for attack damage carry. So you have like SP attackers, you have AD, or like attack like attackers. So this stands for AD carry. It's the characters that shoot a lot. So it's like your Decidueye, Cinderace, Greninja. So really strong AD carry, attack damage, like crazy jungler, really strong, can get a lot done in a game. As for Cramorant, it's the same thing, honestly. Now hear me out. This is really silly because I'm going to put Cram in the don't jungle this Pokemon tier list, like a tier, but if you're doing like air slash dive, you could probably put it here. I hate saying that, but it's probably true. All of these should probably be down here, but I'm leaving Sylveon here because I've already done it. So yeah, you get the point. SP attackers don't have a ton of room for being in the jungler, except for this next one, which is going to be Gardevoir. Gardevoir is a phenomenal jungler. I don't think it's quite S tier jungler, but it's a really high tier jungler right now. I think it's solid A plus, one of the better junglers in the game. And it's because you can reach for the Unite move at level 9. You can get a lot of the farm that the character can't get from lane, where a lot of these other characters are not the worst thing in lane. Even some of these are not the worst thing in lane. They're pretty decent in lane. They just don't scale very well into the late game. So Gardevoir, really solid, brings an amazing Unite move. Future Sight is crazy strong now after some of the buffs from way back, and it's just a really phenomenal jungler. So as for Pikachu is like the same thing, right? Like, I'm putting these characters on this list like this because they can jungle, but there's really just never a need to. But Pikachu jungle is actually kind of crazy. But it's crazy in the sense that like you're never going to really run it. But if you did, like let's say you got a solo queue game and they made you run it, it's not that bad. You come out of jungle, you have like Electric Ball or Thunder, and then you hit them with like a web, and the gank is not it's not that bad. It's pretty interesting. So yeah. As for Cinderace, another S tier jungler, just such a hyper carry in the game, gets so much work done, can completely carry it. And like seriously, like if you get ahead on Cinderace, you get first dread on Cinderace, especially in a solo queue game, the game's over. Because in solo queue, the teams are not coordinated. They don't know how to shut you down. You're gonna get fed. You're gonna keep doing your jungle rotations. You're gonna be crazy. So also the fact is ranged red buff. So like 80 carries that get the buff from Ludicolo, when your auto attacks hit, you slow their movement speed. When you're a ranged character and you're auto attacking a lot, it's very strong. So ranged red buff, on these characters, really strong, which definitely adds to their strength as junglers. All right, and Venusaur. Listen, Venusaur is not a typical jungler per se. In competitive, you're mostly going to see it run in the lane. In solo queue, Venusaur is an amazing laner, so I definitely recommend you use Venusaur in lane, but that doesn't mean that it's not a crazy strong jungler. The more levels you put on Venusaur, the stronger this character is. And that's obviously true for everybody, but the more this character is going to scale into endgame, the bigger you're going to get. You reach for that level 10 or level 9 for the Unite move. You reach for level 13 for the wider Pedal Dance ability for the Pedal Dance Plus. It's super, super strong. Venusaur is a very strong jungler. Do not sleep on Venusaur. Do not get frustrated if you see a Venusaur do not be frustrated if you see a Venusaur in jungle. Like, it may look weird, but it's not weird. As for Decidueye, this is going to be a crazy hot take, and I'm going to explain why. But Decidueye is, in my opinion, a worse jungler than Sylveon and Pikachu. And no, it's not because it's literally a worse jungler than Sylveon and Pikachu, but because it's a worse character, a worse Pokemon than Sylveon and Pikachu. Ask yourself this: what would you rather have in jungle? Decidueye, Sylveon, or Pikachu? Well, most people would probably say Decidueye. But then ask yourself a secondary question. What would you rather have on your team in the late game? A Sylveon, a Pikachu, or Decidueye? The answer should never be Decidueye. So this is a bit of a hot take. I'll let you guys argue on this one in the comments. So let me know what you think about this one. Decidueye is honestly not worth playing. It's just not. It's a very, very rough Pokemon right now. So there's that. That happened. All right. Let's look at the defenders. I don't think a single defender is jungleable, are they? I mean, you shouldn't really jungle them. I could probably put, like, Mamoswine jungle up here, but the reality is that if you're playing seriously, if you want to win, you really shouldn't jungle. That said, Jungle Invade, does this count as a playstyle? Huh, what do I do with this? I hadn't thought about this. We're going to put this as Jungle Invade. You know what? We're going to put it on the right side of the tier list. This is Jungle Invade Greedent. Jungle Invade Greedent, super strong. I don't know what to do with that. Okay, I hadn't really thought about that. But for the rest of the roster, there's really just no reason to take them in jungle. You can do it for fun, for memes. They're not literally that much worse than saying like a Pikachu or a Sylveon. But kind of. Like, at least these characters do a lot of damage, so I wouldn't overthink this, really. Yeah, I don't know. As for the speedsters, Talonflame is still an amazing jungler. You can do Brave Bird and be really, really strong. Brave Bird aerial ace, really, really strong ganks, attacking like players, ganking the 850s. Mostly the 720Bs are going to be a huge gank for you. If you're Fly Flame Charge build, then you're a bit more presence on Dreadnought. You can flip objectives. It's really, really strong. You spam your Unite move with this character. Same with Pikachu. Do not be afraid to spam your Unite move when you have it, because you will get value out of that if you can get it back. Gengar. I like this character, man. It's not the strongest character, but in solo queue, it's not that bad. This character can carry some games. If you can get ahead, you can really tear some things up. It's not the best choice, though. I gotta be honest, it's not the best choice. It may even be the same tier as these down here, but as far as being a jungler, it is a little bit more viable than running these, which should more often than not be running lanes, Sylveon, Pikachu. But Gengar's not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, it's not the strongest thing in the world either. And ironic enough, I actually think Zeraora is right there with it. I think that Zeraora is really strong, especially the Wild Charge build, but it's just that the fact that you can't really reach for level 9. This character, if you ran a full team of characters that had level 9 Unites, and then you had an enemy team that had a full team of characters that had a level 9 Unite, and then a Zeraora, well then that one team just needs more experience than the other team, and that sucks. The Unite move isn't so crazy strong that it makes sense to run Zeraora, but the character itself is not weak, so it's a strong character. It's okay. It's an okay character, but yeah, I'd say as far as jungling goes and solo queue, they're honestly probably the same tier, which sounds crazy to me to even say out loud. Absol, I think, is like one tier higher. One tier higher, which, crazy enough, I think competitively, Gengar is probably better than Absol, but solo queue wise, Absol can be a monster. It's not super, super high tier as far as jungling goes, but in solo queue, Absol can be an absolute monster. An absolute monster. All right, supports. I'm going to be honest, Hoopa, because the character can bring damage, it's still not going to be jungleable. This is getting to the point where like I'm running out of space, so I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start fitting characters in here just because I don't really want to throw a bunch of stuff in this tier list where you can jungle it. I don't know. I don't know. You can jungle these picks, but the reality is that there's never really a reason to. There's never really a reason to jungle supports and tanks. I think in the past I put them on there like, yeah, you can, they're a little bit better than this, and I was a little bit more literal. But the reality is that if you're playing seriously, and I think that that's where the game should be kind of going to, there's really no reason to jungle supports or defenders. Some of the SP attackers shouldn't really be in jungle, and that's just kind of what I'm thinking. If you guys want to give me a little bit of pushback on that, I would love to hear your thoughts behind it, because the reality is that I could rank these. Like Trevenant could be probably in B tier, Mamoswine maybe B plus would be a decent jungler. Flail Lax, like, yeah, it's possible. It's possible to jungle these and get some value out of it, but there's really no reason to. I mean, Decidueye, there's no reason to play Decidueye. So at best, I could slide some of these up to this tier, but you kind of get the point. These are actual junglers, and then these two are not actual junglers, but bring value to the team through doing damage. If you're jungling a tank or a support, you're not bringing that much value to the team. Not really. And last but not least, let's go into the all-rounders. All right, Dragonite. I still think Dragonite is a really solid jungle pick. It's not nearly as strong as it used to be, but the objective presence on this character is pretty strong. It's a more valuable pick than Absol for sure, and it's just a solid pick. It's you can run the Hyper Beam build and get some good value out of it. Also, if you're running this character, the whole one big gimmick of this character is being able to spam the Unite move at 50%. So you get a lot of Unite moves out of this character, meaning you can run a score shield and you can score, which in solo queue is really, really valuable. Really valuable to be able to put in a score whenever you want to, just because you can use a Unite move for it. So definitely consider that. Definitely consider that. As for Serena, sadly, this character has just fallen from grace. It's not very strong, but as far as being a jungler, it's still okay, right? Like it ain't much worse than say Zeraora or Gengar. These are just like characters that have kind of fallen or are not as strong anymore. They're a little bit more weak. So, it hits like the middle of the pack as far as jungling goes. But unfortunately, Serena, with the nerfs that it got, just not really able to kind of do its thing anymore. Not really able to do its thing anymore. Crazy enough, Lucario is honestly a better jungler just because of the strength of the character. I think I've talked about this in the past whenever I've done one of these videos. Honestly, Lucario could probably still just be considered S tier. But as far as jungling goes, you don't really need to jungle this character. And in an ideal world, you would have somebody laning this character, right? But I'm going to put it on the list at minimum at A tier because you can literally get E-Speed or Power Up Punch at level 5 and gank a lane with either one of those. That's just strong. And this character is just broken. Like, I'm being honest, this character is literally just broken. So is it the best jungle option? No. But if you see a jungle Lucario in your game, you shouldn't be that frustrated by it. Just make sure that your team is picking good laners. So it shouldn't really be jungled because it's such a good laner, but it can be just fine. And the same goes for Machamp. Like, Machamp is honestly a really good jungler, but there's not a lot of reasons to run Machamp. Now in solo queue, if I'm being honest, Machamp is probably a really fine jungler, A+ tier. I'm gonna kind of leave it here because I liken it to the similar situation as Lucario, where it's like these characters are so good in lane that it's probably better just to put them in lane, and both of these characters are really good with an attack weight, so it's probably better to just put them in lane. But to be honest, you can run a full damage build without attack weight on Lucario and get great jungle value. You can run a really damage heavy build on Machamp without attack weight and get good value. I run Muscle Razor Buddy on this character. If I was jungling Lucario, I'd probably run like triple damage items like Weakness, Razor, and Muscle. Maybe throw a Buddy Barrier on it if I wanted it. So you can bring some value to the jungle with these two champions, or these two Pokemon, but there's not as much of a reason to. There's other junglers that are better junglers, kind of objectively speaking. Garchomp is honestly pretty good, but the character itself is just not the strongest pick. That said, I don't think it's really on the same tier as like some of these junglers up here that are really like honestly strong junglers, but it can kind of dominate solo queue. Realistically, I think that it sits a little bit above this list, so like right here somewhere, but just for the sake of saying, I'm going to throw it in A tier. It's either bottom A+, really high, A. Actually, I'll even do it just for the sake of showing it off a little bit. This doesn't really matter left to right, but Garchomp is a pretty solid jungle pick. It's kind of rough in lane anyways, and the character scales to late game pretty well, but it's not a super strong Pokemon. That said, I would kind of rather have a Garchomp than many of these other mons down here for jungle, so that's what I'm going for. The character does scale pretty darn well, if you ask me. And Aegislash, I gotta be honest, it's kind of the same thing. It's either really bottom A+ tier or it's like high A tier. I think if I'm putting it in this list, there's just like, it's not really fair. So I'm gonna go on ahead and slide all these over one more time. Oh, my background layer. I'm gonna slide all these over one more time, and I'm gonna throw Aegislash here. I think that Aegislash is actually a really good jungler. The reality is that, and it's for a lot of these jungle picks, there's always something better, right? It's not quite on the level of like being able to hard pressure objectives with say Talonflame or Dragonite, being able to scale into endgame with Venusaur or Gardevoir, or being able to hyper carry as Greninja and Cinderace, but it is a very strong pick at times. So this is kind of my jungle tier list, is what I'm thinking. Greet and Invade is like the one thing that gets to just chill in S tier in this like alternate universe. I don't know what to call this. And realistically, these Pokemon down here, there's just really no reason to pick them in jungle. These Pokemon should almost never be in jungle. Honestly, Sylveon Pikachu should almost never be in jungle, just because they're good at lane. Machamp and Lucario should almost probably never be in jungle, but they do bring value, so I put them on the tier list. And Decidueye is Decidueye, so big sad. So friends, this is my jungle tier list. Oh my gosh, I'm so dumb. Hold on, wait. Wait, how did I miss 2 Pokemon? Hold on, wait a minute. First, Blastoise, get over here, budge. Wait, and where's Charizard? How did I miss 2 Pokemon? Charizard, A+ tier. How did I forget these? I wasn't looking at my screen. All right, Charizard, A+ tier. Really solid jungler. It's not quite S tier. You got to be careful with the Unite move, and it's hard to just like truly carry a game, but really strong jungler. I can't believe I literally left out my favorite Pokemon. So, yeah, so there you have it. Finished up the tier list, friends. Thank you so much. Drop a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think. I think that there's going to be a little controversy around here, maybe an up or down here, but I do appreciate the support, and thank you so much for watching. Friends, be sure to be kind to one another. Tell someone that you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.